Mayo treatment. We're not going to dialogue.
Agree with you entirely on that, but I think that you all are kind of missing the point of what's going on here. There are hundreds of thousands of Americans who are so enraged about what's going on. This is still a pretty conservative country, and people are upset about the policies in Washington, and they don't think the politicians are listening.
I think some of the people are upset because we have a black president. Let's take a look at Senator Specter's town meeting. Some of these statements people are making. Listen to what they're saying.
To do with race.
Let's listen.
That's an absurd comment.
Let's listen to what they're saying. Let's listen to here's the Specter town meeting. Right to, and then Governor react to this.
I don't believe this is just about health care. It's not about TARP. It's not about left and right. This is about the systematic dismantling of this country. I'm only 35 years old. I've never been interested in politics. You have awakened the sleeping giant. We are tired of this. This is why everybody in this room is so ticked off. I don't want this country turning into Russia, turning into a socialized country. My question for you is, what are you going to do to restore this country back to what our founders created according to the Constitution?
Governor Rendell, this is primitive talk.
No question.
What do you make of it? Is this about the health care bill? Is this about some basic sort of almost secessionist movement going on out there against any kind of federal role in anything to do with social welfare?
Well, I grant.
How are you, Carlos?
Ron, so apparently there's fairly significant, almost disturbing news. Let us know what's happening there in New Hampshire.
Well, things are peaceful. There are perhaps several thousand people here in front of the high school, and they are lining the road up to the high school. People for health care reform, for lack of a better way of describing them, on one side, people against it on the other side. Things are very, very orderly. But let me clear up one thing. There is a man in the crowd who has a gun, a handgun, strapped on his lower leg. And I asked the chief of police about this. The chief of police says that it is legal for him to have the gun as long as it is not concealed. It's a registered weapon, and what's more, the man is on private property, a church ground there at the end of the roadway, and the church has apparently given him permission to be there. The police are obviously keeping a close eye on this man, and they're not going to let him get anywhere near the president, and I suspect that he won't be here by the time the president gets here in just a couple of hours' time. But again, for the most part, things are very peaceful. The police are keeping an eye on things. The crowds are separated.
But to be really clear, we're seeing the pictures right now.
Stephen, one point. I think there are people who are legitimately concerned about the amount of debt the country's running up, and I think that is a legitimate concern. However, to say that these people who come to the rally, that's foremost on their mind. Stephen, let's begin with the fact that many of these people are birthers. The birthers are absolutely nuts. They won't believe the clear and credible evidence that President Obama was born in Hawaii. Hawaii is part of the United States of America. I think the birthers are...
Let me say this. I hope that you all on the left keep calling these people who go to these tea parties and these town hall meetings nuts, because you're talking about the broad press. But look, you're all pitting. You look at a couple people like this nut who brings a gun to this rally and say, these people are just crazy. Why don't they just shut up and go home? And Chris, I have to say, it is so outrageous for you to say that these people are angry because we have a black president. I mean, it makes me think that you're totally out of touch with what's going on. A lot of people voted for Barack Obama.
The reason I say it is because
one day God's going to stand before you, and he's going to judge you and the rest of your damn cronies up on the hill. And then you will get your just desserts. I'm leaving.
Okay. We've just had a demonstration of democracy. Okay.
Look at the map of the United States, and I see where people question his birth, and I see the pattern of race here, and it's historic in our nature, and I see it, and I don't like it. And you're telling me these people just have idle thoughts. Well, he may not be born here. Could it not be his ethnicity? And you deny that, Stephen. You deny that's the issue here.
Could it be? I'm sorry. Could it be what?
His ethnicity. That's not the issue here.
I don't believe it is.
You really don't believe that.
I really
and you look
don't.
At the people the kind of people that have been jumping up and down on this issue.
Chris, I think most conservatives that I know, and I go to a lot of these meetings, they're proud of the fact that we have a black president today. They genuinely are proud of our country for electing a black president. They don't agree with his policies, but the fact that we have grown beyond racism, I think, is a great thing for this country. I think most conservatives agree.
Congressman David Scott of Georgia, an African-American man, says that racism is involved, that it's sort of the subtext of this debate. Just for the record, do you see any indication of that?
I don't. I think that is irresponsible to say also. There may be individual instances of that, but there are a whole lot of people who are frustrated and cynical and angry, and I'm not sure that it would be accurate to make that about race. The disagreement yesterday was more because somebody broke the rules and brought in a sign when nobody else was allowed to bring in a sign, and they were flaunting it, and it angered people, and passions got out of control. There was certainly a little bit of wrongdoing on the part of the women who had the sign because they knew they weren't supposed to have them, and there was certainly wrongdoing on the part of the gentleman who ripped it out of her hand.
So for your take is no indication of the fact that it was Rosa Parks on the poster.
Oh, no.
It was the presence of the poster.
Oh, no, I'm not even sure. I don't think that had anything to do with what was on the poster. It had to do with everyone. We had, 2,500 people there, and they all were instructed with great big signage, you can't bring signs in. And there at the very end of the meeting, in walked these women with signs unfurled, and of course it agitated the crowd.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because that is certainly something that's being played on liberal blogs, that it was a Rosa Parks poster and that there was significance in that. You see no significance.
I don't think that was the problem. I think the problem was somebody violated the rules about bringing in signs, and it made somebody angry, and things got a little out of control. But we went for 2 hours, and there was just that little incident. There was some rudeness, but by and large, we got through it, and we were able to exchange a lot of ideas, and I think it was terrific.
You think these people voted for Obama?
Some of them did.
Oh, come on.
I do. I know some of them do. I went to these Tea Parties. A lot of them are independents. A lot of the people were angry at George Bush as they are with Barack Obama. They just think our country is out of control. You can't borrow $10 trillion over the next decade.
Okay,
we're losing control of our country.
Let me go back to Governor Rendell. You've got a budget problem in Pennsylvania. You know the difference between people worried about budget problems and people with a fundamental anger at the way things are. Some people are just mad at society right now.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And the birthers are a perfect slice of these people who have lost their rationality, and they've become obsessed with certain things. And that obsession is hurting the democratic process. If Stephen's right, and let's grant for the moment, hypothetically, that he's right, that there's this huge wave of outrage out there in the country. The way to manifest that is at the polling booth, at the 2010 elections, and we'll see what happens at the 2010 elections. The way to manifest it is not going to public meetings and ending discourse because you shout so loud that nobody can be heard.
Governor, I agree with that, and I think that's the ugly side of these meetings. I don't think people should shout down an Arlen Specter or a Claire
Stephen,
McCaskill. You're exactly right about that.
I've never seen ugliness and rage like this in the 32 years that I've been in politics. I've never seen anything close to it.
Governor, there was a lot of rage against George W. Bush. I mean, you can't deny that.
Well, let me ask you about
not rage at this level of intensity.
Stephen, I respect what you do. Anybody that writes and thinks hard like you do deserves respect, clearly left, right, or center. But there's a memo that's been passed.
These town halls are getting downright frightening. This video fed into us this morning with regard to the protests against Obama's town hall. This man holding a sign, and he has a gun strapped to his leg, which is legal in the United States. On Saturday, a handgun fell out of someone's pocket at a town hall in Arizona. No threat made, but aides did call police. NBC's Ron Allen is live at the president's town hall in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, I should say. Ron, we're already seeing a lot of protesters gathering. What's the mood right now?
Well, right now the mood is sort of festive, if you will. There are people who are yelling back and forth at each other on opposite sides of a street that leads up to the high school.